Aloha everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Aaron Ling Johanson, State Representative for House District 31, which is Moanalua, Foster Village, and Aiea. I'm also privileged today to be here with two new esteemed colleagues, just wonderful, fantastic additions to our House Minority Caucus. And they join me today. They are Representative Beth Fukumoto and Representative Cheape. And we're going to spend the bulk of our time today just getting to not only know each other, but talking about some really exciting and fresh dynamics, both in our caucus as well as in the State House, and just what this means for the state of Hawaii. So without further ado, I'd love to just have both of you introduce yourselves to our viewers and let them get to know you the way that I've gotten to know you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here today. As you said, my name's Beth Fukumoto. I'm representing Mililani and Mililani Mauka. This is my first year in the State House. I've worked in the State Capitol for about 4 years now, so this is going to be a new position for me. Prior to this, I was the Director of Research in House Minority Research, where, as you know, I provided research support for the members of the Minority Caucus.
Great research, I might
Thank you, thank you. And wrote the bills and that sort of stuff. So I have actually a lot of experience coming in with just the dynamics in the Capitol. But the new part and the exciting part of my job is that I'm getting to know even more about the intricacies of my community and being able to support my community in a new way. I've had the privilege of meeting with a lot of the principals and community leaders in the past couple of weeks since the election. And it's really been good to just get to know people even better than I knew them before.
That's great. And how about Representative Cheape here?
I'm representing a brand new open district, and it's a really special and unique district. It starts from Mililani and goes Schofield, Wheeler, Waialua, Tamokalia. We also have Kunia. And so for me, it's a really special place in my heart. My father's family was born and raised in Waialua. My grandfather worked at the sugar mill. My father is very proud to be a Waialua graduate. And then I was born and raised in Mililani and went all the way through the Mililani public school system. So really have a special place in my heart for this district. And a little side note is we have some of the best prime agricultural lands here in Hawaii, and my family, I'm a 4th generation farmer, and so it's something that's really important to me, and I'm so excited to be here at the Capitol to represent my area.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone that we're all very excited to have the both of you. I certainly am excited, as it has brought the median age of our caucus down a little than what it used to be. And I'm glad actually to turn over the baton from former youngest member of our caucus at 32 to now one of the older ones. You both are in your 20s, correct?
Yes.
I think that's just tremendous. And actually, 4 out of the 7 of us now in the Minority Caucus are age 32 and below. What do you think this means? How do you think this will impact our caucus? I've done some thinking about it, but I'd love to hear sort of a new, fresh perspective on what you two both think that means in terms of bringing some youth and energy and new perspective into our caucus, but also what that means just for Hawaii in general.
I think having a new, just a new set of perspectives in general in the building is helpful. A lot of times we have the same people over and over again, and the same ideas are coming out every year. And to be able to bring new ideas is a good thing. I think also we have the opportunity as a caucus and as a larger body to engage young people in a way that they have not been engaged. For the most part, most people know that the 60 and above crowd is very engaged in politics, but the younger crowd is not, and that's been a huge failure of the government to not be able to get people involved. So I think we have a real opportunity in that sense.
Yeah. How do we, I think that's always the quintessential question, how do we get people who may be just not as interested in politics or might just think, that they don't necessarily have a role or can't make an impact? How do we best engage individuals like that, taking a stake in their government?
I think it really is being able to talk to them on the personal level. I had the opportunity to go to Mililani High School and speak with their participation in democracy class. And the great part about that was being able to go in and say, you know what, I'm only 8 years older than most of you in this room. Imagine if I can come into office and I can be making a difference, what you can do. And I think it's changing their mindset to realize that, it's not just a whole bunch of people up somewhere that make all the laws for us and I have no say. I think it's really making them realize that they do have an input and they do have the ability to make change no matter what their age. And I think that was something that's great to communicate, and it will help to dispel that voter apathy for the younger generation.
Are there tangible techniques that, we're obviously this is going to be broadcast on cable television, but are there other means of communicating with, our generation that you have found resonate most?
Definitely. They say that this is the first generation that you can actually be somebody's neighbor and have an entirely different set of experiences, because Google ads are targeting you for different things. Your TV shows, there's so many different things you can watch. You might not watch the same things on TV. You might see different commercials. So really being able to target things is much more important than it hasn't been in the past. I know when Eisenhower ran for president, they were able to just buy, one half-an-hour segment, because there were only 3 TV stations, and know that the entire American population were going to be able to see that. And that's not the case anymore. So we have to look at smaller avenues. So things like Google ads to get out messages to link people to websites that might be more specific to what they're interested in. So maybe, a new thing coming up in January 1st, the athletic trainer laws are going to change. So maybe just targeting athletic trainers, which would actually probably affect more younger people, and maybe they would click on that and then see that, oh, look, if I get involved, I could have changed this, or I could, so I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I think one thing that I see a lot, especially with the elementary schools that come and visit, I'm often struck by, here I am talking to, all of these, the next generation really of leadership, and then I realize, it wasn't until I was an adult, way out of school, that I even stepped in the Capitol at first. It was just sort of that building that I passed on Punch Bowl and Baratania all the time on my way to something else. And I think the more of a meaningful nexus that we can create with this building, and as both of you have talked about, the impact that government can have on people's lives, and the stake that each person has, the more people see a vested interest.
And to touch on what both of you have said, I think I've really realized with Facebook, instead of just shooting out information in TV ads, it's more of an interactive. People like to be able to click and be able to interact with you. And so it's bringing in the younger generation. They can be able to click on things, be able to see and learn interactively, and I think that's going to make a big difference as well.
Now, as we've talked about, increasing personalization, customization, and the need to appeal to individuals specifically where they're at, what are some of the things that both of you, in terms of issues or priorities, what are your issues and priorities that you'll be bringing to the Capitol with you?
Well, one of the big things for me is going to be education. Lauren and I both represent Mililani. Mililani has some of the best schools. Sorry, I know you're in Montalua, but Mililani has some of the best schools, and to have the opportunity to represent them in the legislature is a huge deal to me. I did spend some time just today actually talking to the people in charge of transportation services for our schools. School safety also is a big topic, and it looks like it's going to be a bigger topic this year. So being able to talk about that with people, and being able to advocate for the schools here is going to be a big thing for me. The other thing is things like traffic mitigation, road work, that kind of stuff. And we are already seeing some changes. We have a whole slate of things that are going to be done within the next couple of months that we'll be able to put out to the community and say, hey, we're already making changes. Look at all these roads that are already getting paved, and all these changes in the schools that are already getting done. And just being able to get behind the community leaders and our school leaders who are already doing stuff, being able to support them in a different way is really important to me here.
And how about you, Representative Cheape?
Because my district is so diverse, there's so many different issues. The first of my issues really is in agriculture. It's something that's really important to a lot of the people in the state of Hawaii. Because we're in an island chain, it's so important to have a sustainable lifestyle. And because of my background, it's something that I think I have a forte in, and I know that I can be a voice for the farmers here in Hawaii. And also education is an extremely important issue for me. My father is a public school teacher at Nanakuli High School, and as a product of the public schools, it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. So those are the things that I'd really be focusing on, as well as the rising cost of living. It's something that affects all of us here in Hawaii.
Listening to the both of you, I'm just struck by there's you have prime agricultural lands. You largely have a suburban area. I have suburban and industrial, and it's just so fascinating, I think, how just on such a small island like Oahu, you have so many diverse areas. And that's one thing that I think will be a tremendous asset to our minority caucus, just this diversity of experience and breadth, really, of issues and priorities. I know I have learned so much more about agriculture, considering I'm very proud of the Sumida watercress farms that are in Pearl Ridge, which is in my district, but that is literally one of the only plots of agricultural land
I'll
I
get
have.
you some boots and you can come marching around with me in my district.
Yeah, and I think that is really the beauty of the legislative experience and interacting with your colleagues, is you really get to learn a whole lot more about the state and a whole lot more about issues that are important to everyone, even if that's not what's your district, what it immediately comes to mind for your constituents. And I think that helps you keep a broader state perspective in mind. Getting back to sort of this notion of a state perspective, what do you think, Representative Cheape, that it means for, does it mean anything for the state? You know, when I look at the current composition of the House of Representatives, there are a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, and it's a rather large percentage of our 51-member body. Do you think it means anything for the state? Is it indicative either of a new generation of leaders coming up, or does this just happen every cycle and maybe I've not ever noticed it before?
I think we really are on something new and groundbreaking, and it was fun for me when I was able to go door to door. Because I look so young, I often would knock on a door and the first question wasn't, what are your issues? It was, how old are you? Where I'd kindly say, old enough to run. I was surprised at a lot of the reaction of the people in the state of Hawaii. The reaction usually was, we need some young blood there in office. And I think people are realizing that we do need that balance. We need new, young, fresh blood and fresh ideas coming in, but we also need the wisdom of people who have been here for a long time. So I think we're on the edge of something new and groundbreaking, because we can have that great dialogue of being able to work with both the former generation and the upcoming generation.
How do you think, Representative Fukumoto, because you've worked in the building, how do you think it influences the Capitol building itself and you know, the different state policies that end up being enacted and pushed by our body?
I hope to see actually a big push for more transparency in government. I think that's something that a lot of young people can get on board with, especially when we look at the way we do things now. A lot of people that have a lot of experience with things like Facebook and the internet and all that stuff will look at the way we do government and say, this is not acceptable anymore. We have to fix this. And actually, Governor Abercrombie is putting a lot of money and investing in this new budget that he just put out, investing a lot of money in technology and infrastructure, which is really good. And he has a young team that's actually been helping him a lot. And that's what's really going to help change things here for every single party and for every single generation, is if we can get more of the issues out to the public and get more public influence, then we have a better chance of increasing dialogue and eventually affecting change. So I think that is what having young people is really going to do, is hopefully make things more transparent.
What I think is fascinating, because I think at some level we've all faced sort of, I expected my representative to maybe be a few decades older than all of us are. The thing that used to always get me is, having spent 5 years in Washington, 4 or 5 years in Washington D.C., most of the Hill and a lot of the executive branch ends up being staffed by the very people who are commensurate ages. And I often used to think I'd have a small little chuckle in my head, and I'd think, well, your national government is also being run by people who are younger or the same age. What I saw is, it's this continual infusion of new ideas and new energy. It doesn't always make for the solution that gets chosen in the end, but I think just even having that conversation and introducing into the equation that there might be another way to approach this, and another bite at the apple, that really is healthy for government, because government can become very wedded to doing something the same way. But times change, people change, the needs and wishes of our constituents also change. And in order to be a responsive government, I think that it's important to have that continual refreshing of the dialogue. I think what people are often most interested in is just, if there is, a takeaway or something that you really hope to accomplish in your freshman year. Everything is so new, so everything is exciting. But people always sort of wonder, is there one thing that you really want to push for, or really want to make several, it could be several things, that you hope to make your signature priority for your first year here at the Ledge?
I might actually have a list for you. I don't know if I can find a signature, but one of the things is improving the interconnectedness of my community. We're already very connected, but even more so. I got the chance to talk at Milani Middle School the other day and talk about that, and they were really receptive. So trying to get even more people connected to each other, that's sort of the broader thing. But being able to fix some of the roads, being able to restore school bus transportation, and then the other thing would be increasing transparency in government. Those three things. Yeah.
All good things, and it's good to have a list. I think it's better to be ambitious and try to tackle a lot more and get a lot more done and have more results that way. So good for you. And how about you, Representative Cheape?
If I had to leave something in my first year, I think it would be what type of representative that I want to be, that I am the representative that you can feel free to come up to at the park or at the store and just come and speak to me. Being able to have that open communication, not be afraid to come up and speak to me, that's something that I'd want to leave. But again, what I'd focus on if we had to bring out the list is, again, bringing out, there's so much we can do and so many possibilities for agriculture, for FFA programs, getting the younger generation involved. The average age of farmers here in Hawaii, 65 years old, something we need to work on. And as well as working with Beth and all the other legislators in our area for education. I think that's something that's on the forefront of everybody's mind. And we always say education, 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 and not much changes. So hopefully we can do a lot of that this year.
Yeah. I think those are great. I mean, I remember trying to take stock 2 years ago when I was in your position as a new freshman and thinking, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to do? But it's, I think you both have brought up in different veins, sort of transparency and openness and also accessibility. And again, I really think that's something that our generation clamors for, and that, because that's at the tip of our tongues, I think it's something that helps us bring that perspective here at the legislature and to advocate for it. And I think it will be more successful in helping to engage our generation in actual government. And it's, it's needed. I often think when I'm with these elementary school students here at the Capitol that if this is my part to help reinforce civics, then we'll have done our job. But I think that's our next challenge as legislators. We can't legislate everything, and so at some point, people have to be civically engaged to decide the direction of society and where they want it to go and what kind of laws they're willing to be bound by.
That was a valuable thing that we actually got to talk to yesterday at Milani Middle School. We were able to talk about, we were talking about community service because they were doing a walkathon, which they raised $75,000 for nonprofits in the past few years. Since school's been there. Actually, Lauren went there, so you probably raised some of that $75,000.
First class to ever go through Milani Middle School when there was only 2 buildings and no sidewalks.
When I was that age, we went to Wheeler, so Lauren's a little younger than me. But we got the opportunity to talk about that, to talk about community service. But I got to share with the kids that government is supposed to be part of the community and supposed to do things for the community and take care of the needy and take care of our needs. But government cannot do everything. There's just no way. There are too many needs. So the community has to help, and that was something that I think perhaps had not been articulated to them in that way, that actually it's all, like I said, interconnected, and you have to be a part of the community somehow, and that's one of the best ways to do it, is either through community service or even just inviting somebody to have lunch with you when they have no friends or whatever. So I think that's what we have to start, and that's how we can start getting them involved, is just explaining to them, even this tiny thing that you do, being nice to kids in school, or helping your neighbor take out their trash. Anything like that can actually really help the community, and it's connected to government too. So
So we have focused a lot just on government and the governmental experience, but I think it's also interesting for the viewers to just hear a little bit more about your districts, because what is fascinating about the two of you is your districts have changed markedly, from year to year, really, with just changes in the landscape, changes in the demographics of the area, and just changes in the land use areas. But I think really it can mean a a lot in looking at your area and trying to see sort of where the state is going, and some of the problems that I think a lot of your areas have are literally what we keep brushing up against, both on the leeward side, the windward side, and on some of the neighbor islands. So maybe for our viewers, I'd love to tease that out and hear just some of what the Mililani experience has been. And for both of you, you either are right up next to something that isn't Mililani, or your district includes things that aren't. So, but I think when I think of some of the issues that are going to be coming up this session, it is a lot to do with issues that you feel maybe more than I do in the urbanized core. You are experiencing it firsthand.
You want to go first?
Sure. And some of the issues, are we talking about the issues directly related to our area? If I want to make sure I clarify on that.
Sure, but that have relevance, I think, because they're emblematic of what's going on at the state level.
So going back to agriculture, one of the biggest problems in my area is we have all of this great prime ag land, but there's no water, there's no electricity. So although people can afford to buy some of the ag land, they can't pay $1 million to put a well on their property. And so we say we want sustainability, we say we want all of these things, but if we're not providing the infrastructure to do it, then how can we expect anything to be done? So a lot of these lands have just been sitting for decades. And I think that's something that needs to change, and there's a lot of different options we can put on the table to bring water to the area, to make sure water is up to code. And those are things that I think are really important to provide a sustainable food source for our entire state.
One of the big things in my district, we have a lot of homes that are relatively expensive. Sort of what people don't realize is that we have a lot of people, the heads of households are part of the sandwich generation. So they are taking care of their parents in those homes, and they're taking care of their young children in those homes. I think that's something that's going to start hitting us across the state, and has started hitting us across the state. So things like cost of living increases, pension taxes, all those things are really disconcerting to people who are already struggling to afford their mortgages and take care of little kids and their parents. So we need to start addressing long-term care and all those things. And Mililani, as you said, Mililani is actually, we're already facing those things, and it's going to start happening across the state if it hasn't already. Also traffic. Ava Beach might have it a little bit worse, but we have it pretty bad too. And it can take us a really long time to get in and out of town, and it's affecting the quality of life now. And that's one of the biggest concerns I've heard. I met a lot of people who said, I take my kids and I'm spending all this money on my house and taking care of my parent, but now I have to put my kids into private school because otherwise I won't see my kid ever by the time I get into town, go to work, and come home. And then how are they going to get home from school in Mililani? So they moved to Mililani for the great school district, but now they have to take their kid into town for private school. And that's another issue that we're kind of facing. If we don't fix the traffic thing, then we have all this other stuff that's going to start happening. So
it's becoming, I think, an increasingly important quality of life issue that you took for granted before, but now when you're spending an hour and a half of your life in a car, inching along just one way, and then you got to do the reverse commute, it definitely takes a toll on the family. And I think one thing that I remember, because Mililani was different when I was growing up than it is now, but that's where I started to see, I don't remember hearing about a lot of overcrowding of schools, but it started a lot with Mililani, and now you hear it all the time in the Kapolei areas and where there are large developments. It's almost sort of a commonplace problem, but there was no Mililani Middle when I was growing up. Everybody went to Wheeler, and how is that still the case, or has the building of new schools sort of alleviated that, and has that been the approach and tactic of the state and developers to mitigate that issue? And
well, Wheeler and Uka are under capacity. Not Wheeler, I'm sorry. Waina and Uka are under capacity right now. So they could probably take some more students. So those are not as heavy as they used to be. But Mililani Ike and Mililani Mauka in my district, it does seem like they're still at relatively high levels. Especially Mililani Ike, and the middle school is still on a multi-track system. So yeah, our school is not big enough to house all of our children, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime in the near future. So yeah, it's still a problem.
But I know in the Eva Beach area, that's something that they regularly have to face, just the overcrowding of schools. And with numbers that, if you don't have overcrowded schools, high schools and some of the others, you just end up being really surprised at. But I think, this session there will be a lot of focus on development and land use issues, environmental regulations, but particularly the land use issues, because we're a very land poor state. There's just not a lot of excess land in Hawaii, and so the way we utilize it ends up being disproportionately important to all stakeholders, constituents and various groups alike. And so, it's just, I think the two of you represent such interesting districts that really give some of us, maybe in the more urban core, a good look at just what are some of the state's foremost concerns, especially on the horizon. And it's great to talk to the both of you, and I wish we had unlimited time, because I think you both have such individually, personally fascinating stories, but also such great districts. Alas, though, we are limited in time, and with that, we just wanted to close and say to the audience, again, so wonderful to have Representative Beth Fukumoto and Representative Lauren Cheape joining us here today, but also joining the House Minority Caucus here at the Hawaii State House of Representatives. Again, it's been my pleasure to be your facilitator today here on our Better Government show. We thank you for watching, and we urge you to just get involved with your government. Do contact us. Let us know what you think, and let us know what your wishes are. Your government is here to represent you, and only in doing so will we truly have better government. Aloha.